first in Florence. Officers are on South Cashua Drive. They're staying very tight-lipped right now, but a witness told our crew who is on scene right now she heard gunshots earlier. We've watched this storm really come in from North Carolina. It has been creepy to watch what they're getting hit with, just knowing there's the word again, I know we keep saying it. It's a 9-acre privately owned spot of land. The owner either wants to sell it to the city for preservation or develop a subdivision. It's 3 a.m. and police are called to a home in Longs. The children who live there say several men broke in and they had a gun. The report shows a 16-year-old was raped during that home invasion. We weren't planning on being in the car for this live shot, but we had to jump in the car really fast because we're in Cherry Grove. That's how fast the water came up. What was that like for you guys? I know when we're in this business, we want to be here for our viewers. I know that really hurt to have to leave. Yeah. How did you guys make that decision to actually evacuate from your news station? Here's a look at what's trending tonight. There was no winning lottery ticket sold last night for the latest Mega Millions drawing, which we knew because I'm going to win and I didn't win last night.
Right, so that's how we knew.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That means the jackpot has climbed to $900 million.
An ambush. That's what the Richland County Sheriff is calling that deadly officer-involved shooting in Florence. Just a few hours ago, we took you live to that news conference. So let's go over what officials said there. 74-year-old Frederick Hopkins Jr. has officially been charged with the murder of Sergeant Terrence Caraway. A judge denied his bond. He is also charged with 6 counts of attempted murder for the other officers who were shot. Now, the sheriff says deputies went to Hopkins' home in the Vintage Place subdivision to interview his 27-year-old son, Seth Hopkins. This picture was taken from his Facebook page. He is scheduled to appear before a judge any minute now, and we do have a reporter in the courtroom. The judge is not allowing us, though, to carry that live, but of course, we're going to let you know what happens as soon as we know it. Deputies wanted to interview Seth about an allegation of sexual abuse of a minor, and they went there to serve a search warrant. When deputies arrived, the sheriff says Seth's father, Frederick, started shooting without warning. ABC 15's Tanya Brown has more from that news conference today. She is live from the scene. That's off of Hoffmeyer Road in Florence. Tanya. All right, Tanya, thank you so much. Now, about those others, 6 law enforcement officers are continuing to recover tonight, and we now know their names. From the Florence Police Department, Officer Brian Hart, Officer Travis Scott, and Officer Scott Williamson. 2 of them are out of the hospital tonight, 1 in critical condition. Now, from the Florence Sheriff's Office, Deputy Ari Davis, Investigator Sarah Miller, and Investigator Farrah Turner. They are all in critical condition. Big question tonight. Who exactly is Fred Hopkins Jr. and why did this happen? We sent ABC 15's Sydney Glenn out to talk with some of his neighbors for some insight. So Sydney, what'd you find out? What did people have to say about it? Bill Truman there was so close, he says he could smell the gunpowder. It's when he saw deputies running by with rifles that he went inside his home. That's when he realized it was bad. Neighbors who heard and witnessed that shooting just call it surreal, as you can imagine. As ABC 15's Amanda Kinsett shows us, they will not be forgetting about this anytime soon. We are just hearing the Florence Police Department needs your help finding a man. They want to talk to him about comments he may have made about the officer-involved shooting. Detectives say this man right here, take a good look, wanted for questioning after they believe he talked about being a copycat and referenced the Vintage Place shooting involving those law enforcement officers. Take a good look, guys. If you've got any information about this man or the truck right there that he was seen driving, call police. You know, as we've said, those brave officers in Florence, they're back at work. Several deputies responded to a situation on Alligator Road this morning. Neighbors spotted the Florence County Sheriff's Office's helicopter flying over that area. Deputies say the suspect is in custody. We are working for you to get some more information, though, about exactly what happened. A Surfside Beach Town councilman is facing charges tonight. Officials say Randall Stevens committed several ethics violations during his 2016 campaign. Now, the investigation started when a community member complained. After being found guilty, Stevens is facing some fines tonight. We have reached out to him for comment. We're waiting to hear back. You can read much more about his charges over on WPDE.com. Happening right now, a sign that Horry County is beginning to return to normal after Hurricane Florence. This is some really good news, guys. All the lanes on Highway 501 are now open. Look at that, traffic moving along there. We know so many of you, though, are still in recovery mode, but slowly we are really starting to see life after the storm get just a little bit brighter each day. Experts say the number of jobs created last month was down significantly. Why? They are blaming Hurricane Florence for that. Some of you get one every single day, a scam phone call. If you're me, you're about to throw the phone in the trash can. We're going to show you simple ways you can protect yourself and where you can report those annoying calls.
A story you've been covering for 2 years now.
Yeah, that's right. But you know what? 2 years is nothing compared to the decades of damage behind the headlines. In 2016, 4 Horry County officers were indicted, accused of just not investigating cases at all. Well, we wondered what happened to those victims or the suspects in those cases. Tonight, we're investigating how the actions or inactions of those detectives led to a domino effect in your community. This story is one example. Right now, we are going to take you with us as we follow the dominoes. Choices. Think about them.
I want to believe that you didn't.
They lead to our actions.
You're talking about murder, armed robbery, murder.
And all the moments after that, consequences.
The hand of one is the hand of all.
That's the voice of Major Crimes Detective Troy Allen Large during an interrogation. Remember him?
That's my dark secret.
This is the former officer's deposition. Before he died in January, he was accused of sexually assaulting women whose cases he was supposed to investigate. He was one of 4 officers indicted for misconduct.
A lot of breezes blow through my heart and the edges are still tattered.
Samantha Downer was dealt a rough hand. In 2002, she and her husband Paul were celebrating their 5th wedding anniversary. He owned a paint company, each had children. The pieces just fell into place.
April Fool's Day was really big for us.
Chance.
So when I got the chance to go out with him, I was like, oh yeah, I'll go out with him.
Brought them together. It also forced them apart.
I do love you. Basically, he's supposed to grow old and
Plans.
have grandchildren and old enough to move in with the kids and annoy them.
Sometimes life has different ones. On February 1st, 2002, Paul and his brother drop off some of his workers at their home in Longs and stay for a beer.
Paul was just a very, very generous guy to a downfalling.
At 8:26 p.m., police are called to a home invasion. Through tears, Paul's brother tells them 4 men walk in with guns and want money. Reach deeper, one says to Paul as he puts his hand in his pocket. They shoot him anyway. Samantha says the next day her husband was to be paid $10,000 for finishing up a big job.
Whoever found that out and whoever told other people apparently got the date wrong. The home invasion was early. It wasn't on that date, and Paul was murdered for $200.
The officer wrote in his report that he found Paul with his wallet under his head and change on the floor next to his pocket.
You know a lot more about this case than I do because we were never allowed to see the case file.
She says she learned very little from police, attorneys, and investigators.
That's really hard for me too. It's like, well, okay, what can you tell me about my life instead of what I can tell you about my life?
The only thing she really knows about the case is this.
When they were interviewing things went wrong.
In his report, that officer also wrote the lead detective would be taking over the investigation. Troy Allen Large. Remember him?
Means probably you could be facing the death penalty and never get out of jail.
That's Large interrogating 19-year-old Jeremy Williams.
Well, I don't know nothing else.
4 days after Paul Downer's murder, Williams is the prime suspect charged with murder and armed robbery.
Well, if you've indicated you wanted an attorney, you might want to talk to him then.
1 minute and 30 seconds into his interrogation, Williams asks for an attorney. He asks at least 5 times during the more than 3-hour interview. Miranda rights are the law, and the officers didn't play by the rules. During the interview, Williams talks about guns he owns, cars he drives, and where he was when Paul Downer was killed.
I didn't do it, man.
He never confesses to the crime, but cannot account for an hour and a half of his day during the time of the murder. 4 officers, including Large, are suspended for 1 week for botching that interrogation. Large's letter of suspension reads, quote, "Failure to ensure the application of these rights has severely jeopardized the potential success of a homicide investigation." Is it possible that something like that throws a case?
Definitely.
Senator Greg Hembry was the solicitor at the time. His office prosecuted the Downer murder case.
There is no question that there will be things that would not have happened but for those failures.
Between 2002 and 2006, during his time out of jail on bond, Jeremy Williams is accused of a slew of other crimes. He is never indicted for murder or armed robbery. Nearly 5 years after Paul Downer's death, Williams is offered a plea deal, voluntary manslaughter. He spends less than 10 years in prison, free, in December of 2015. August 11, 2016. It's 3 a.m. and police are called to a home in Longs. The children who live there say several men broke in and they had a gun. The report shows a 16-year-old was raped during that home invasion. A 34-year-old is charged for the crime. Take a guess. Jeremy Williams.
They were not doing work. You know, that's the thing. It's not like they were going out and making stuff up and manufacturing evidence to try to catch people. They were going the other direction. They were trying not to catch people.
Nobody else was ever charged for the crime that killed Paul Downer. Makes you wonder, are there other guilty people still free to commit more crimes?
It's inevitable. I mean, there's no question.
Now the solicitor's office is getting calls and letters from inmates claiming their cases were mishandled.
I think there is certainly a possibility that there could be some cases that get challenged again.
Meaning tax dollars used, time invested, and victims' family members reliving their pain.
It's not just me. It's all of the families. You know whose cases were mishandled. Pull them out. Make those the first ones you pull out.
Samantha was reluctant to do this interview. She toyed with it for months before realizing she might have some power over how police played their next move.
I know it can be like another black eye to them because of what had happened, but black eyes heal. Paul is never going to heal.
Choices. Consequences.
What's happened recently might not have happened.
The what-if game spins in Samantha's mind.
This is the picture that breaks my heart the most.
The loss of memories, their future, Paul's daughter.
She wound up committing suicide because of it. We buried her March 18th. And the unborn child she was carrying.
A tough hand. At times, it can take only a moment to see the impact our actions have.
Hey, Paul, you have no idea how much I hope this helps.
Other times, it can take decades to feel the full effect.
You ask for an attorney, you better go get you a good one.
But sometimes things don't go as planned.
Put your hand behind your back.
It's just the way the dominoes fall. Right now, Jeremy Williams is in jail. He is expected to go to trial for the August 2016 rape and armed robbery this summer. We tried several times to set up an interview with the current Horry County Police Chief for this story, but his public information officer requested a list of our questions before granting us that interview. It is standard practice in journalism never to supply questions to an interview subject to preserve the authenticity of their answers. We explained this, and our emails and subsequent requests for interviews were ignored.